Welcome to the office. Take a seat. No, not that one. That's the one we bolt to the floor so the guy across from you doesn't decide to use it as a blunt force instrument. It's 7:15 a.m., and the air in here already smells like industrial-grade bleach, floor wax, and unwashed desperation. You've got your lukewarm, overpriced coffee in one hand and a stack of folders in the other that contain enough nightmare fuel to keep a horror novelist in business for a century. Your first appointment? A charming fellow in administrative segregation, AdSeg to the locals, who thinks the voices in the vents are giving him stock market tips. Or, more likely, he's just malingering to get a transfer to the psych ward, where the food is slightly less like wet cardboard. Walking through the sally port is a rhythmic symphony of heavy steel doors slamming shut. Clang, buzz, clang. It's a sound that tells your subconscious you're officially in the belly of the beast. You aren't here to be a friend. You aren't here to fix them in the way your idealistic grad school professors promised. You're here to evaluate if they're a danger to others, a danger to themselves, or just a really talented liar. In the SHU, the Security Housing Unit, every pair of eyes behind the plexiglass is studying you. They aren't looking for help. They're looking for a crack in your armor, a soft spot in your empathy, or just the fact that you forgot to clip your badge correctly. One slip, and you're not the doctor anymore. You're the mark. You sit down in a room that's 4 degrees too cold, staring at a man who hasn't seen the sun in 6 months, and your job is to figure out if the remorse he's showing for a triple homicide is real or just a play for a better yard time slot. It's a high-stakes chess match where the board is made of trauma and the pieces are personality disorders. You spend your morning navigating the gassing alerts. That's when an inmate decides to share a cocktail of his own bodily fluids with an officer, and trying to decipher if inmate 772 is actually having a psychotic break or if he's just high on K2 smuggled in through a lawyer's legal brief. The paperwork is its own kind of torture. For every hour you spend face-to-face with a psychopath, you spend 3 hours documenting why you didn't think he was ready for general population. If you're wrong and he goes out and shanks a 19-year-old kid serving time for drug possession, that's on your license, that's your career, that's your conscience. By noon, your brain feels like it's been through a meat grinder. You've listened to stories that would make a veteran detective shiver, and you've had to maintain a neutral, clinical face while a man describes in graphic detail why he thinks his victims deserved it. You learn to eat your ham sandwich while reading about dismemberment, because if you don't, you'll starve. The graveyard shift of the human soul doesn't offer lunch breaks for the faint of heart. Every interaction is a tactical maneuver. You learn to sit closest to the door. You learn to never wear anything around your neck, not even a stethoscope, and definitely not a lanyard. You learn that silence in a cell block is more terrifying than the screaming, because silence means something is being planned. As you move between the blocks, you carry a man-down alarm. It's a small, heavy box on your belt. If it tilts more than 45 degrees, it assumes you've been knocked unconscious and sends every officer in the building running to your GPS coordinates. It's a constant weight, a reminder that you are a civilian in a war zone where the enemy doesn't wear a uniform. You see the frequent flyers, the guys who self-harm just to get out of their cells for 20 minutes to see a different set of walls. You see the predators, the ones who sit perfectly still, watching the way you breathe, waiting for you to mention something personal, a wedding ring, a picture of a dog, so they can use it as leverage later. This isn't therapy. This is forensic risk management. This is the dark side of the DSM-5, where the labels aren't just descriptions, they're warnings.
You think you're smart because you spent 8 years in academia? You think those 3 letters after your name, PhD, make you some kind of wizard? Forget it. The ivory tower doesn't have barbed wire on the windows. To get here, you didn't just need a doctorate in clinical psychology, you needed a stomach made of reinforced concrete and the ability to look at a crime scene photo without losing your lunch. The training is a brutal gauntlet designed to break the helper out of you. First, you survive the correctional awareness phase. That's where the guys in uniform, the ones with the scars and the cynicism, teach you how to not get taken hostage. They show you the shanks made out of sharpened toothbrushes, the slingshots made out of industrial-strength rubber bands and bed sheets, and the darts made out of rolled-up magazines dipped in toxic ink. They tell you stories about the doc who thought she could save everyone until an inmate used her empathy to convince her to bring in a harmless cell phone, which was then used to coordinate a hit on a witness. You learn the con game by heart. It's the systematic manipulation techniques that inmates use to turn staff members into mules. It starts small. "Hey doc, you look tired today. They're working you too hard." It sounds like kindness. It's actually a diagnostic test. They're testing your boundaries. If you say, "Yeah, I am tired," you've just opened a door. Now you're two humans sharing a moment. In a prison, that's a vulnerability. The next step is the blur, where they start making you feel like the guards are the bad guys and they're the victims. If you fall for it, you're done. Then comes the forensic residency. You spend months in maximum security facilities, supervised by veterans who have seen everything and believe absolutely nothing. They teach you to spot malingering like a bloodhound spots a scent. Is he truly schizophrenic, hearing the voice of a demon, or did he just read a DSM-5 manual in the prison library to avoid a disciplinary hearing for assaulting a kitchen worker? You learn to use the MFAST and the SIRS-2, tests designed to catch people who are lying about their symptoms. You learn that someone who is truly hallucinating usually tries to hide it, while someone who is faking it will yell it from the rooftops. You study the PCL-R, the psychopathy checklist revised. This is the Bible of the damned. You learn that a score of 30 isn't just a number, it's a red flag that the person sitting 3 feet from you lacks a conscience the way a fish lacks lungs. You learn about the dark triad, narcissism, Machiavellianism, and psychopathy. You learn to recognize predatory aggression versus reactive aggression. One is an explosion, the other is a cold, calculated strike. The training isn't just about the inmates, it's about your own mind. You have to learn how to compartmentalize. You have to develop a work persona that is professional, firm, and completely devoid of personal information. You learn to never talk about your kids, your hobbies, or where you live. You become a ghost. The burnout rate is astronomical. Half of your cohort will quit before the second year because they can't handle the empathy fatigue. When you spend 8 hours being lied to, threatened, and manipulated, your view of humanity starts to warp. You start to see a predator in every stranger at the grocery store. You start analyzing your spouse's behavior for signs of gaslighting. You have to learn to leave the monsters at the gate. If you take them home with you, they will eat your life. The veteran psychologists, the ones who've survived 20 years, have a specific kind of 1,000-yard stare. They don't get shocked anymore. They've heard it all. They know that sometimes evil isn't a chemical imbalance or a childhood trauma. Sometimes it's just a choice, and your job isn't to judge that choice, it's to predict when they'll make it again. You learn the law, too. You have to know the Tarasov rule by heart, your duty to warn a potential victim if an inmate makes a credible threat. You realize that your notes aren't just clinical observations, they are legal documents that can be subpoenaed by a court of law. One wrong word and you're on the stand, being grilled by a defense attorney who wants to prove you're biased. It's a specialized kind of madness, becoming an expert in the things that most people spend their whole lives trying to pretend don't exist. You aren't just a doctor, you're a gatekeeper for the safety of the public.
It's 3:45 p.m. on a Friday. In the world outside, people are thinking about happy hours and weekend plans. In here, it's the witching hour. The air in the yard is thick, electric, with a tension you can feel in your teeth. You're in your office, finishing a report on a high-risk parole candidate when the radio on your desk crackles to life. Code red, cell block C, all available staff to block C. Your heart doesn't race, it freezes.
code red means violence. It means blood. You grab your alarm and your keys and you move. You don't run. Running causes panic, but you walk with a purpose that cuts through the chaos of the hallways. When you arrive at Block C, the heavy smell of copper, fresh blood hits you like a physical wall. Inmate 402, a frequent flyer with a rap sheet longer than your arm and a personality profile that reads like a manual for chaotic evil, has barricaded himself in the day room. He's got a piece of jagged, rusted metal, a shank he must have been working on for weeks, held to his own throat. But he's not alone. He's got a younger, first-time offender pinned against the wall. The tactical team is already there, looking like space marines in their black riot gear, gas masks and shields. They're itching to go green, to deploy the CS gas and the flashbangs. But if they move too fast, 402 will open his own throat or the kids. The warden looks at you. He's asking for the doc. You're up. This is the moment they didn't teach you in your introduction to group therapy class. There's no soft music, no comfortable chairs, no "how does that make you feel?" You step into the doorway, the tactical team forming a wall of black steel behind you. You're alone in the gap. 402's eyes are wide, pupils blown out. He's either on something or he's in the middle of a massive sympathetic nervous system override. "Step back, Doc," he screams. His voice is a ragged mess of vocal cord damage and sheer terror. You have to use your voice as a scalpel. You don't scream back. You lower your pitch. You use the late-night DJ voice. Calm, steady, authoritative. You call him by his name, not his number. "I'm right here, Elias. I'm not going anywhere." You start the active listening protocol. You let him talk. He starts rambling about the system, about how his meds are being poisoned, about the guards are planning to kill him in the sleep. You're scanning his body language. You notice he's not actually looking at you. He's looking at the clock on the wall. And then it clicks. The veteran in you, the one who survived the con game training, sees the play. He's not having a breakdown. He's timing the shift change. He's waiting for the perimeter guards to rotate so his brothers in Block D can start a diversion. In a split second, you have to decide, do you play along with the victim narrative or do you call the bluff? You choose the truth. You drop the clinical voice and you hit him with the cold, hard reality of the situation. "Elias, stop. Look at the clock. I know what happens at 4 p.m. It's not going to happen today. Block D is already on lockdown. You're alone in this." The lie about Block D is a gamble, a massive one, but it works. The hesitation in his eyes is your opening. You don't talk about feelings, you talk about consequences. You describe the hole, the administrative segregation cell where he'll spend the next 3 years if he doesn't drop that medal. You describe the loss of his commissary, his TV, his only connection to the world. You make the evil choice look like a bad business decision. For a heartbeat, the world stops. The metal stays at his throat. Then his hand shakes. The shank clatters to the concrete floor. The tactical team moves in like a tidal wave, a blur of black and silver. You step back, your heart finally deciding to hammer against your ribs like a trapped bird. The adrenaline dump is nauseating. You walk back to your office, passing the fresh inmates coming in from processing, kids who have no idea what's coming for them. You sit down. Your coffee is stone cold and has a film of dust on top. You check the clock, 5:02 p.m. You log the incident. You write the evaluation. You note that inmate 402 showed calculated predatory behavior rather than acute psychosis. That note will keep him in high security for another 5 years. You walk out the gates, the heavy steel doors slamming shut behind you for the last time today. The sun hits your face, and for a second, the world looks too bright, too normal, too fake. You see people complaining about traffic or the weather, and you want to scream at them about what's happening 5 miles away behind those walls. But you don't. You get in your car,
You turn on the radio and you drive home. You don't tell your family about Elias or the smell of copper. You don't tell them about the eyes behind the plexiglass. You just sit at the dinner table, eat your food, and realize that you have to do it all again on Monday. You aren't a hero, you aren't a savior, you're just the person who holds the flashlight in the darkest, most twisted corners of the human mind, hoping the batteries don't die before you find the exit. This is the life of a prison psychologist. Welcome to the graveyard shift of the soul. Stay awake. The monsters are always watching.